for the monster of Peladon is when the TARDIS lands 50 years after its first visit to Peladon, the Doctor and Sarah Jane discovered a troubled planet ruled by the late King's daughter. Peladon is at the center of a war, and the Galactic Federation desperately needs a mineral found in the mines. But why is the ghost of Agador killing miners? And why can't everyone be trusted? Queen Thal'Ira needs the Doctor's help to find out. It is interesting to have, for a series like this, to have a true sequel to a story that was made a few years ago, and not just reference an actual just continuation story that's like 50 years later. It was interesting to see that, and pretty neat actually. It was good to see the change of a planet after so much time, and how the effect of what happened in the previous story continues on in this one. With the kind of time change also, it's interesting because, like Curse of Peladon was unintentionally taken as an allegory for what was going on at the time, because if I remember correctly, the British people were wondering whether or not to stay with their traditional values or go into the European free market. And they were undecided at the time, and I believe they did go to the European free market. Well, much like that one, this one was also unintentionally taken as an allegory. Because at the time, miners in Britain were going on strike because they didn't feel like they were being treated properly, and this and that, so they went on strike, production stopped, power outages, this and that just happened. And some of those events seem similar to Monster of Peladon, because in Monster of Peladon, the miners are mining for a certain mineral to help with the war that the Federation is in. And so the miners, feel like they're not being treated properly, though they haven't for years, but really now they feel like they need to stand up for something, and they kind of go against the Queen, they go against the Federation, because they're trying to get equal treatment, and it's completely understandable that they want that. It's just so much is going on that they don't have time to focus on them. That was an interesting idea, interesting not only idea for the story, but interesting that people took that for an allegory when it was not intentional. It was just something that was part of the story and a subplot. But I liked that. I always said that. I'll keep on saying this. I'm sorry if it's annoying, but I always say that Sarah Jane's a feminist person, and with this one, the Queen has a good character arc. It's not really fleshed out, but it's still still a good thread to have for this character to try and develop towards the end, because she was she wasn't very outspoken much. She was a queen, but the thing is, though, she didn't really speak her voice. She always had to do what the men said. And so Sarah Jane kind of talked to her about it and just said, do you understand what feminism is? Do you understand, women's lib and this and that? She just kind of told them that women need to speak their mind. Women need to stand up for themselves, speak their mind and all this and that. And, because of that, you get to see this character develop slowly over time. She does stand up for herself. She does stand up for people more from her voice, rather than somebody telling her, hey, you need to do this, but do it in my voice. This is what I'm saying and you have to say it. But instead, she's saying it herself. So it was an interesting, character development. I like seeing some of the characters from the original story return from this, like the hermaphroditic Caterpillar. It was nice to see that character again. The Martians have returned, although they're Martians, but they're different characters, although they look very similar to the ones from the previous ones. And in an ironic twist of fate, spoiler alert, the last story they were, good guys, but in this one the Martians are bad guys because they want to take the mineral. So it's kind of like, oh great, we trusted you last time, now this time you've betrayed us. There was a nice little twist there. There's a lot of good twists and turns in this one. This is like a good thriller story. And also the subplots were also a good suspense, and how they cross paths with each other and intertwined, and how, the miners would cause an effect from the previous story would cause an effect with the miner story. It was interesting, and you just see how one thing ripples through everything, and how people, even though they don't understand the full story of one side, can just automatically assume everything's bad for them, but when in reality they're just not seeing the whole story, and vice versa. So it was kind of interesting in that department, and seeing how things just get overly reacted, and how people can take things to the extent, and like the miners eventually just decide to rebel when their leader says, no, let me handle this, I will talk to them, this and that, and they just rebel, it's just like, screw him. So it was just interesting. And kind of to me, it was kind of like, you know what, this is something that people of higher stature should take into, thought, that if something happens, they need to, think about their employees and all of this, and then eventually that does what happened. There does become, a peace between the miners and the hierarchy, and, equal treatment and all. But in real life, it's something that something employers should really think about with employees as well. I liked I just liked how you just really do feel for a lot of the characters, even some of the miners who are just really bad characters. You do really understand why they're going for this, why some of them rebel against their leader and the hierarchy as well, and want to start rebellion and fight everybody. It is just really interesting that they took the time to try and get into everybody's little story. And I thought that was really cool. In the end, a lot of good story, good characters, some good character development. Some of it just needed some work on it. Some of the special effects was actually kind of good. There had some model work, and the Ghost of Agador was pretty simple, but pretty effective, I have to admit. It didn't seem cheesy or campy or anything. It just seemed like a good progress for the special effects. The sets looked amazing. The Peladon Castle and Temple looked just like it did before. Nothing much had changed, and looked pretty dang good. And the mines themselves, granted, yes, it was a simple set. It was like just one big set, but they filmed it from different angles to make it look like it was longer. But it was still pretty cool. And, you know what, this was a pretty dang good story. It's something I do recommend for Doctor Who fans to see, especially if you've seen Curse of Peladon. It is nice to see that change, to see how much the Doctor has affected the whole society, and how much the society has affected the Doctor, and see Sarah Jane's interaction with a society like this, and see how much she's changing it, and how her development as a companion is being, and this and that. It's all pretty damn well. I give this one like a full 5 stars out of 5. I really did enjoy this a lot. It was really funny. I mean, really fun to watch. I will admit, though, it was kind of, speaking of funny, it was kind of funny because the miners looked completely ridiculous. Not ridiculous in the sense they were dressed in something that wasn't functional, but their hairstyle was just so damn hilarious because they looked like raccoons or badgers, because they had this, because it's the 70s, they have afro hair with white streaks in it. It's like full brownish or black hair that's the giant fro with white streaks in it. It was just hilarious. You kind of took them serious, but at the same time, when looking at the hair, you couldn't take them serious. But it didn't take away from anything from the series. It was just funny to look at, and it was just something of the time. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and my next review for Doctor Who, I will review John Pertwee's Last Story. And it was a good one, but it was a tearjerker. And I will see you then.